So for the sermon slot, Margaret and I are going to share with you a few thoughts about different aspects of today's Torah portion. Rabbi Alex pointed out to me that this is a notable anniversary weekend. Last year, Shabbat Vayakhel Pekudei was the first Shabbat when services were held online at the start of the first lockdown. What a scramble it was for all our communities to go virtual. And we've certainly learned a lot about Zoom and live streaming. What would we have done without all the remarkable electronic means at our disposal that enabled us to continue meeting as a community? Fortunately, we don't need to speculate about that, though I feel sure we would have found ways. But what a blessing Zoom et al. Have turned out to be. Two of the main themes that emerge from this week's Torah portion are Shabbat and community building, and that's in both senses of the word building. The Sefer Yetzirah, which is one of the earliest books on Jewish mysticism, speaks of God's universe, the places where God can be encountered, as being divided into three kingdoms: Olam, Shana, and Nefesh, space, time, and person. In the Mishkan, all three kingdoms are included. The tabernacle and later the temple and synagogues represented Olam, or space, and concern about this area takes up much of the book of Exodus. Shabbat, the festivals, life cycle events, for example, are the Shana, or time, when God is encountered. And as we heard, God is very clear about the instructions to observe Shabbat in our parashah. The third place, Nefesh, is within each of us, in the person or the soul. And that's reflected in the willingly brought gifts of both talent and materials that are offered by the Israelites in their building project. This past year, the words of the writer Achad Ha'am, more than Jews have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jews, have never felt more relevant and meaningful. I love that before the work of construction on the Mishkan even begins, the Israelites are reminded to observe Shabbat. Before engaging in a task that, to our ancestors at least, and I hope to us too, would have been of supreme importance, the creation of a dwelling place for God, they are instructed to down tools for one day every week. The feverish work of the Mishkan, the bringing of gifts, more than were needed, could be seen as a metaphor for the 6 days of the week. In our world, people seem ever to be striving for more, to do more, to be more. Judaism acknowledges that that ambition, that drive, is an important part of being a human being, and we are encouraged to channel it wisely. But our tradition also recognizes that it needs to be tempered with time for reflection, meditation, prayer, family, friends, a reminder of what it is all for and what is truly important. We take time out on Shabbat not because the work is done, but so that we may return to it, refreshed, replenished, with renewed meaning, with purpose, strength, and energy to face the week ahead. The chokhmah, the wisdom of which the Torah speaks in this parashah, is chokhmat halev, wisdom of the heart. This wisdom knows the importance of community, of the contribution every individual can bring, however large or small. It also knows that constant striving is not good, and Shabbat is a gift, a blessing, and a remedy for that. Perhaps this last challenging year has also taught us to appreciate and value more the important things in life. Each of us confined to our own homes, we have nevertheless created community by observing Shabbat together in ways we could hardly have imagined just over a year ago. Indeed, our liberal and reform communities have seen more people than ever joining services. And when, please God, we are able to return to services in person and in numbers, We'll have to give real consideration as to how we go about doing that. Well, the wisdom of our Torah portion asks us to employ our individual gifts and skills for the good of the community, but also to take time out from that employment. The pianist and composer Artur Schnabel was once asked, "How do you handle the notes as well as you do?" And he answered, "The notes I handle no better than many pianists, but the pauses between the notes, that is where the art resides." In great living, as in great music, the art may be in the pauses. So through our worthy endeavors, as well as through the pauses, I hope that we may create in our hearts and our world a sanctuary that God would be happy to call home. Amen.
Amen. And thank you, Rachel, for your very beautiful and inspiring words. As we've heard, Moses has finally completed the work of the sanctuary, and it's a great moment. Interestingly, the word for he completed, vayachal, is the same as is used to describe God's completion of the work of creation. And the work of creating the sanctuary was, in a sense, like the work of creation. It formed a place where God could dwell, just as God, in creating earth, created a place for God's presence. And yet, no sooner was the sanctuary completed than we are told Moses could not enter the sanctuary because of the cloud which was present above it. It seems paradoxical that when the cloud of God's glory was in the sanctuary, Moses could not enter. Was this not the purpose of the sanctuary, as a place for God to dwell and for us to encounter God there? Earlier on in Exodus, we're told, as Rachel already quoted, "Va'asu li mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham." They shall make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell amongst them. A Midrash tells us that God told the people to make a sanctuary because in the act of coming together to make the sanctuary, they would find a common purpose and feel a sense of God's presence among them. The sanctuary inspired awe amongst the people and gave them a sense of God's presence, but God truly dwelt among them whilst they engaged in acts of holiness. We are told in the Talmud, when two people come together and speak words of Torah, the divine presence rests between them. It is when we engage in conversations and acts which bring us closer to God that we can experience God's presence. For a year now, we have, like Moses, been prevented from entering our sanctuaries. We have felt the loss, the coming together as a congregation in person, the chats over Kiddush, the communal singing, the handshakes and the hugs. Yet we have discovered new ways of being together in our communities and creating a virtual congregation in a way we could not have imagined a year ago. In our congregations and in wider society, many of us have engaged in activities which bring people together and support people who are on their own or in need. We have volunteered and helped strengthen our sense of local community too, our streets and our neighbourhoods. In doing so, we have felt God's presence amongst us. As Pesach approaches, and we mark Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the beginning of the month of Nisan, tomorrow, we contemplate holding our Siddurim online or in small groups yet again. We have to discover God's presence in new ways. This year, we know we have the technology to join with other people to celebrate a Seder so that no one has to celebrate on their own. The rabbis call the home the Mikdash Ma'at, the small sanctuary. Every home has the capacity for holiness. May we find holiness in our homes and in our relationship with each other, whether we are together online or in reality. As we enter the month of Nisan, also known as Chodesh HaAviv, the month of spring, may we find hope in the signs of new life we see around us and in the story of our liberation.